Welcome to Mary Pitts Live presents 31 Marital Gems. Are you single, married, divorced, or dating? If you answered yes, then this is for you. Mary Pitts is a pastor, spiritual advisor, author, world-renowned speaker, and entrepreneur. Here's your host, Mary Pitts.
Good evening. Welcome to Mary Pitts Live presents 31 Marital Gems. I have been so blessed to be with you all, and I tell you, we're on gem number 8. Marriage and ministry. But before we get into that gem, I would like to say thank you so much for your prayers and continued support. And also make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. So immediately after this segment, make sure you go over to YouTube and subscribe to Mary Pitts Live YouTube channel. Also, for more information about our ministry, just feel free to visit us at marypittslive.com, marypittslive.com, and you'll see all the things that we have going on, and also the organizations and groups that I am connected to. So, but I am so thankful that you have joined us together today. Today is Friday, January the 8th, and so we will be talking about gem number 8. Gem number 8 is about marriage and ministry. Marriage and ministry. It is so very important, and I see a lot of couples go through different challenges when it comes to being married, and also having ministry. And as I mentioned, my husband and I have been married for 31 years. But in that time before we married, we both were in ministry. At that particular time, I was an evangelist, and he was in the church and ministering and things like that. But as God began to develop up in our true ministry, began to go forth, one thing that you have to remember is that just because you get married, your ministry doesn't go anywhere. And so remember, as God told Jeremiah, before you was formed in your mother's womb, I ordained you as a prophet to the nation. So before anything else took place, God had it's already been settled. You already been chosen. You already been predestined. You already, the calling is already there. And so what you don't understand is that it's not that after you get married or later on, God decide, okay, I choose you and I want to use you. No, it's already decided. You may not be aware of it. And so even I say to couples, even in premarital counseling, I mention to couples and say, you need to have that conversation regarding ministry. You need to have that conversation regarding spirit and ask, are you called of God? Do you have a calling on your life? And also, and have that conversation. And even if you don't, you may not be aware of it. Are you running from God? Because that is going to impact your marriage. There is nothing you can do with that. You can't just like, okay, sometimes we divorce and say, well, I don't want to be with this person, move on. You cannot divorce from your calling. You cannot divorce from your purpose and what God called you to. And so you're going to go through different changes as you become one, because what your spouse is called to is not the same what you're called to. And so how do we work together? How do we merge these two ministries, callings together and work together, without being in competition, but learning how to collaborate and work together, and realizing that we're part of a many-member body. And so it was so funny. I'm just thinking about the time that my husband and I, as we in ministry together, with marriage and ministry. And so you saying a couple just getting married and coming into the marriage with ministry. Now that can be challenging. That can be something, because I'm an evangelist. And so I was traveling a lot. And so when my husband met me, I was traveling with the ministry I was part of. We traveled, we did tent ministry. We just went places. And also I was speaking. I had speaking engagements, and I went different places and speaking and engagements, women's conference and all of that. And so a lot of times when you get married, what we had came in with our own idea what that going to look like, So I was continuing, I'm called to preach. And so those are some things that, and then my husband, he was looking at, a wife, a mother, being at home, and so I'm all of that. I'm evangelist, wife, mother, and all of that. So what does that look like? And so how do I manage all of that? How do I do all of these? Which one can I drop? Or can I drop one? You have all these ball, like you juggling the balls and you want to drop one. Well, God wouldn't allow me to drop because I can't drop being a mother, couldn't drop being a wife, and couldn't drop being called and chosen of God. That wasn't by my choice. That was what God had predestined, had already. So we had to go through some changes, and we had to get counsel and how to work together. And it's like a hand in glove. It's like, initially you think it's not a fit. You put your hand in the glove, but then you have to work it. And once you work it, you'll see it fits perfectly. So a lot of times you're going to go through that challenge of where you have to work it. And so and what that's going to do is bring some things up out of you, and that's where that work that God started on the inside of us. So we look at doing a work for God, but God is going to do a work in us, and so it was really something trying to work that out. I remember, because I was so used to just traveling, going and preaching, hanging out, and come back when I get ready and all of that. And so, when my husband was like, okay, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at church. What, why, I'm looking all strange and okay, I'm not at a club or anything, but I had to understand, okay, Mary, you're not by yourself. So just as the courtesy of calling and say, hey, I'm out of church. But I interpret that something else. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not at a club. Why is he calling me? But just to say, just to keep informed and just to touch base, And so, but we had to learn how to work together. And then at that particular time, that my husband, he was a teacher, and teaching wasn't popular, and so I'm evangelist. And so I'm like, evangelist is motivating, exciting, and motivating people, getting them to do and all of that. And you tend to get response from back then, the evangelistic ministry. And so, but people didn't so much respond to teaching. Well, they sitting there seeing where you're going with it and stuff. And so looking at the response from the people, and sometimes you'll go through that where one of the spouses are looking at the response that you're getting versus the response that they're getting. And so those are different things that you're going to go through. You'll see that happens to that. But what we have to understand is understand the different ministries that we have. And so evangelists was certain, and then the teacher, and then I was looking at my husband out of the eyes of my giftings. So he would be up teaching, and I'm in my mind, I'm like, get to the point, hurry up, get to the point, and I just felt like he just dragged it out, so long. And so God just corrected me and say, hey, he's a teacher. You're an evangelist. And so teacher really dissect. Sometimes he would read a scripture and get one word and just won't go from there and just bring so much revelation out of it. And so we had to learn how to work together in ministry. There were times that I'm just being really open with you. There was time he would be ministering to God, giving him a word of wisdom, word of knowledge, or something to someone and praying for someone. And I'm just like in my mind that, and God said, he's not talking to you. And so God had to show me a lot of times through some of the people in the audience coming to me, because where I thought that in my mind, well, he shouldn't be doing that. Why is he doing that? I'm just dissecting everything he's doing as why he's in ministry. And so God was allowing the audience, different ones in the audience will come to me and say, oh my God, your husband, he was right on point. Oh my God, and it just tore me all down. I'm like, okay, God, let me just stop, because I cannot control how you use him. And so we both were though we had been in ministry, but there are some things we were still maturing in. And so working together and ministry. And sometimes I see couples as they come together, especially wives. And I don't know if they have conversation or not before they marry. I see them out, they prophet is this and they prophet that, they doing and they going forth and they got their ministry. And when they get married, it's like, I don't even see that ministry title anymore. And I'm like, okay, so what happened to that particular ministry title? Just because you got married, you still a prophet. You're still a prophetess. Just because you got married, you're still an evangelist. You still whoever that God says you are. And so you have to. And sometimes, ladies, you downplay your calling, you downplay your ministry because of you trying to think in your mind, oh, well, he's the head, he's this. Well, that doesn't flow like that. As that's, we lean to our own understanding, and you cannot downplay your calling, downplay your ministry. And just like my husband and I, we both have major giftings, and so we both walk in that. And so we have to learn how to work together in those particular ministries and those different callings. And so then as we begin to grow and mature, then we begin to understand, because just because we said I do, I didn't know how God used him. He didn't know how God used me. He didn't understand how God used me. I didn't understand how God used him. And so there are certain things, and there's times that he will be ministering and preaching, and God will be showing me some things, because I'm prophetic. I'm a seer, strong spirit of discernment. And so I can see certain things, but, and there's times I had to learn, okay, and then do I need to get up and say something? Do I need to give him a sign, to say anything and all like that? And so to say something, and so we had to learn and work those things out, because God was using him, he was using me. And so what God was doing at times, he began to show me, just because I'm showing you certain things regarding people in the audience, it doesn't mean all the time that you need to get the mic and say something. And if I just just sat there, what happens is my husband will go to that person, begin to minister the same thing that what God was feeling to me. But what God was trying to show me was that we're on the same page. We're at one in spirit. And so I'm like, oh my God, that's what God showed me regarding that person as well. And so, but you have to know when, and you don't want to try to outdo each other like you're in competition, because, people can pick up on that. They can pick up on that, of how, especially now, even now, I want to say this to some of the couples, and especially both of in ministry, that when you're, even like doing Facebook Live, and people get into all the likes, and they get into who gets the most hearts. And so if you're on with somebody, your spouse, and you say something, the other one say something, and they get all the stuff. And then sometimes you're shy away and don't want to do it because you feel like people responding to the one more than the other, and we get in this competition thing and get overbearing. But we have to understand those things that we have to work out. And so initially in our marriage, we'll start just saying things like, well, and people get, I got to do what God called me to do, and ain't nobody gonna stop me and all that, not realizing that nobody's trying to stop you. It's just that you have to be patient enough to work through it. And so, like I said before, you can be together, but it's a difference when you start working together, and when you start working together in the ministry. And so I just remember, actually yesterday was 3 years that my husband and I we started Marriage Ministry More, Facebook. Actually, I had a vision, I had a dream, and God was dealing with me about something I was sharing with my husband that Sunday morning. I had just had surgery, actually, that December and that January. That's when we started. Following January, I had the dream. And so I was sharing the dream with my husband. He said, Mary, you need to get on Facebook and talk about that. I'm like, no, I don't do that Facebook Live stuff. He said, really, you need to. He was getting ready to go to church, and I was at home because I had just had surgery. And so I was like, no. And so after he was like, yeah, I think you need to. I said, okay, I'll think about it. And when he went to church, when he came back, I tried to make a flyer and all this stuff like that. And I posted on my personal page, that my husband and I doing something new. And I says, we're going to do Marriage Ministry and More. And so that's how we started with that. But you know what? Behind the scene, my daughter was there. We went through some challenges, because it was like, what we're going to talk about, what I don't feel led about that. He don't feel. And so we had to work through those things. So we would have just said, you know what, forget it, because I don't want to go through all this. You know what I mean? You just do it, or you just do it, But what we had to do was work together, stick with it, and then begin to work together. And then we'll find ourselves begin to come in one accord. But a lot of times we don't want to go through that changes. We don't want to go through where we have to work it. And so just be patient with it and realize that just because you got married and, you haven't worked together in ministry before, you don't understand how God uses your spouse. Your spouse don't understand how God uses you. Your spouse don't understand. And sometimes you, marrying somebody that's not familiar with maybe prophetic call or apostolic call, apostles and evangelists, and because I know all I was used to before joining the church that I was a part of was about reverend and pastor. And so that's all I was familiar with is reverend and pastor. So what am I saying today is that I want to encourage you, and you married and with ministry, to hang in there, be encouraged. And sometimes that also where you can't neglect the gift that's on the inside of you. You cannot think you're going to neglect the gift. Okay, I'll just not do anything and just so I can have peace and quiet and all of that. You're not going to have peace and quiet, because when you call and chosen of God, you just call and chosen of God. And so not only with that, and so when God always told me that I call you as a prophet to the nation. He always said that to me. He always told me, I call you as a prophet to the nation. I always knew that, and God joined me, put me in a ministry that was, had apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. And so he put me in that type of ministry, and I got exposed to that. And so not knowing that I had those particular callings on my life, but as they began to surface and got prophecies from different men and women of God and began to show things, and then God began to speak through me to me as I was praying and showing me some things. And so he always told me, I call you as a prophet to the nation. He said, don't look at the countenance of their faces. And he began to tell me the things that he was going to do in my life. Mind you now, you're looking at somebody that was very shy, timid, low self-esteem, and all of this. So I'm receiving all these words of prophecy and different things from different pastors and different leaders. And I am like, they must don't know, they probably don't know me, because I don't even hardly talk to people. And my classmates, some in the class of 80, and they even tell me now, it says, Mary, I never thought you would be a preacher. You didn't even talk to hardly anybody in school. But it's just that relationship, because a lot of times who you think you are, that's not who you are. And so I got married, thinking of trying to be this wife and be this mother and do all these things. But I started neglecting the gift that was in me. I wasn't paying, and stuff like that. And I was trying to make not so much of my husband was causing such a tremendous problem, but it was in my own mind what I thought a wife should be and what I should be doing. And so now I didn't really have a pattern to follow because I got to call it and my husband got to call it. And so I didn't know what it looked like. It didn't come with a manual. So we had to work through some things, and we had to go to our leader and begin to receive counsel and different things like that. And there's time he said, well, Mary's an evangelist. She got to go. She got to preach, And so these are things that we want to make sure that we talk about and have conversation about, and know that you're called of God, you're chosen of God, you have ministry on the inside of you. And ladies, sometimes you're trying to do all these other things, but you need to seek God for your purpose. You need to seek God for your calling. And one thing about it is when my husband and I was dating, I allow him to see all of it. I allow him to see how I was in my church, the different positions and roles I had in the church, and how I traveled and all of that. So it was like, okay, if you connected with me, this is it. This is what you're getting. Because I am called and chosen of God as well. So you have to learn how to work together, and you can work through it. And sometimes days it may be challenges. Sometimes you can pick up on things with each other, your spouse and stuff like that. But that don't mean throw it away. You have to work it. You have to work together. That's like in any relationship. You don't agree on everything. You don't understand everything. But one thing I'm saying to you, you will be a miserable person if you're not walking in your purpose. You're not walking in your calling. I don't care how you think your purpose, your marriage is perfect. Your husband do this, he come on to this, he buy your flowers, he do this and do all this other stuff. You still will be unhappy because you're not walking in your purpose. So I'm saying today, do not neglect your purpose. Do not neglect your office. And then there's women, there's wives that maybe you're the senior leader in the church. Maybe your husband, maybe he's not in ministry, he's there supporting you. And sometimes, wives, we try to make our husbands something that they're not. You got this picture what you want them to be, and sometimes it's like, I'm not called to do that. You want to make them and ordain them a pastor, make them this and make them that, because what you want to present to the public, what you want to look like in the public. But you have to seek God and know what their purpose is and what because there are some husbands that they just support their wife. They whatever, they're not called to be out front and so forth. And so you have to learn how to get wisdom, how to work those different dynamics of relationships, because when both of you call in ministry is different, and when one or the other, maybe the husband is and the wife isn't, and so it's really different. And so a lot of times too, I remember my pastor, his wife wasn't so out front, but she was a praying woman. She's a praying woman, and she can see, and God can see some things. And so God will show her things. And so he will pay attention to what she's saying and stuff like that. And so those are times too that what we have to understand, just because one is maybe out front in ministry, it doesn't mean the other one doesn't have spiritual gifts and different things and what God called them to do. They may not be called in a fivefold ministry, but they have a calling and they have the gifts of the Spirit operating in their lives. And so a lot of times we need to pay attention and to what we have, our calling in our ministry. And so I'm saying to you is you can just say, well, no, I'm not called, I don't have this. Well, you need to consult God and ask God. So working together in the ministry is really a blessing, And as I close, I like to say that one thing, my husband and I, when we finally got it together, and finally got it right. So a lot of times, because of my evangelistic call, he would put me out front, or I go first, or I go different things. And why? Because it's not something about me. There's your personality, a particular personality that comes with each calling. And so he would actually, I would go out first. I'm the person that go out meeting people and all that, because the ministry of the evangelist, it draws, it motivates. I don't even have to try. People are just drawn to me. It's not that I'm so better than him or better than somebody else. It's just because of the calling. And so that's why we want to abide in our calling, walk in what God called us to do, and not try to be like somebody else, And so we have to know that. And so I draw people, but then he has that teacher where he can just ground and stuff like that. And he brings such an understanding, brings such clarity, and has such a great gift, even in certain situations that I'm in. And it's such a blessing that we have gotten to the place that even at night we wake up, where he sleep out through the night, and then through my prophetic call, it's like the Spirit is waking me up, and I have to get up. The Spirit wakes me up around 3:00 every night, and I'm either up praying or God speaking to me about something. I'm writing, I'm searching out what he's talking to me about, certain things he's saying, things he's showing. Sometimes I'm awakened by a vision or things that, different things like that. And so, but he'd gotten used to it. He adjusts to how the Spirit uses me, not try to control when the Spirit gonna wake me up, when the Spirit want me to pray. But and so we've come to understand with that. It was a little challenging at first, but we had to work through it, and so he just like tell people now, being married to a prophet, and so it's just things that God reveals and God shows. And so I don't want you to be silenced. Ladies, I want you to not neglect the gift that's on the inside of you. And I want you to seek your purpose and what God called you to, and begin to walk through it. And I know we talk about a lot of things when we're married or dating or all of that, but make sure you have that conversation about your call, and make sure you have that conversation about your purpose. Do not hide it and put it up on a bushel. because you think, oh, I'm going to get this person, or when I get, you know, whatever. No, they need to know what they're getting into. This is, and you know what? As you begin to grow and go, you really don't know all that's going to unveil, God's going to bring forth out of you, because we're constantly changing from one glory to another. We're changing from one glory to another. All right. So remember that your purpose and your calling, do not neglect the gifts that's on the inside of you. So anyway, I praise God for gem number 8. I pray that you have been blessed by it. And I pray that you are, and sometimes certain things that we're going through is because we're neglecting the calling, where God is looking for a yes from you. So I don't know who you are. You need to say yes to God. You need to say yes to what God is saying to you. And maybe you're not familiar with it or what have you, but you need to get somewhere and say yes to God and allow God to use you. All right. And he will give you wisdom. Pray and ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. All right. God bless you. And I thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much for listening regarding gem number 8, talking about marriage and ministry. Marriage and ministry. So these are my gems. These are the things that I treasure. These things that the wisdom that I've learned, things that God have taught me and showed me to help me in my marriage of 31 years. And I pray that you have received something, whether you're married, whether you're dating, or looking to be married, or what have you. I just pray that it has been a blessing to you. And so make sure you be upfront, because a lot of times, even when we're dating, we just go, oh, I'm so in love and this, and we don't have the conversations that we need to have. And so I'm just so blessed to be married to the husband that I have, that we're able to commune and be able to talk and share. And I can share some things, what the Lord has been saying to me and all of this. And so even when we were doing in-person church and fellowship, and we got to the place where my husband, he would look at me and see if I have anything to say, because he know I'm such a seer. And so he began to take advantage of my gift, you know, not being in competition with it or trying to smother it, but he embraced it and began to use it. Why? Because it's going to bless me, him, the household, the church, the body of Christ, and everybody. All right, everybody will be blessed. So if we learn how to work together. So learn to work together, and do not hide your gift. Do not neglect it. It's there. And some of you may not know what it is right now, and you don't find out till after you're married, but that's okay. But, you know, at least you have something that you heard, and just shelve it until you're able, until you need it. All right. So thank you again for tuning in tonight. I pray that you have been blessed. Gem number 8, we talked about marriage and ministry. And I want to say to you, remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and go right over to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mary Pitts Live. All right. And marypittslive.com for more information on the ministry. So until tomorrow, you be blessed. I'll meet you right here at 6 p.m. sharp. All right. 6 p.m. And we'll be talking about gem number 9. Have a blessed night.